You mentioned that a huge mistake that you see people make is hesitating in their career. How do you advise others to recognize when it's time?
Trust your gut, really. One bit of advice I'm terrible at taking is having a plan, setting out a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, but sometimes the grass isn't greener.
What would you suggest people focus on in order to really grow their career?
There's probably a couple of answers to that question, and it could be
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Power Talks. My name is Griffin, the host of the Citizen Developer channel, and today I'm joined by special guest Sarah Jones. Now, Sarah, you mentioned that a huge mistake that you made and you see people make is hesitating in their career and, hesitating to move forward, and that this was a valuable lesson of yours. How do you advise others to recognize when it's time to take that leap of faith and into that new opportunity for them?
I think there are different triggers for that, to be honest, and it could be a slow burning one where something just doesn't feel right, but it's not a major issue. So, the kind of culture fit, the culture that you're working in, or the technologies that you're working on quite moving forward as you'd like them to be. They tend to be a bit more of a slow burning reason to go, and you might start thinking 6 months before you leave, and then sort of realise that it's time to go. Other reasons might be a change in structure or strategy, or management tends to be a bit of a trigger, which is often a bit more sudden, shall we say, when people decide to move on for those reasons. So I think trust your gut, really. If you feel like you're not progressing as you should be, one bit of advice I'm terrible at taking is sort of having a plan, setting out a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year plan for where you want to be. If that isn't kind of happening where you are, then it might be time to go and have a little look around and see what's going on. Having said that, I think, you might be approached about an opportunity that sounds interesting, but sometimes the grass isn't greener, and there's a lot of that in our industry. A lot of people sort of tapping each other up, and I think it's good to sort of slow down the process and really consider what your own motivations are before making any kind of quick decisions because something shiny has popped up in your LinkedIn inbox.
Right. Okay, so you've given me so many questions. And I want to get into all of them, but I guess I first want to ask you as well, and this is another big one, but what would you suggest people focus on, especially, in kind of the software consulting, power platform consulting niche that we live in? I mean, what would you suggest people focus on in order to really grow their career? What would have the biggest impact, I guess? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of answers to that question, and it could be the niche itself that you're in. So, Power Platform's so big and dynamics, and, people come from all sorts of different backgrounds as well. So strengths are different across the board. You don't get a lot of people that look exactly the same on a piece of paper. So I think if you're really good at one particular area, if you're a really, really strong Canvas app developer or, Power Pages or C# or whatever it is, that you've got kind of great skills in that allow you to be niche, then I think maybe follow that and become a really specialist. If you're a consultant though, and it's more about those kind of people skills, and you're great on project, are you working on the right sort of projects? Are you enjoying the projects that you're on? Is the team right, and is the progression opportunity there for you? Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that answers the question. I guess a follow-up question to that is, how do I know, say for example, I'm just on a project I don't really enjoy, whether it's a poor teammate or I don't really care for the work stream that I'm implementing, and this project is, say 6 months to a year. I mean, my initial thought is just because I don't like the current project I'm on, that wouldn't necessarily mean I should look at changing employers. You know what I mean? Like, I guess, like, what are your kind of your thoughts on somebody in that situation that's on a longer term project that, feels like there's no end in sight, but the problem isn't necessarily their employer, or potentially it is, but yeah.
I think if it's a 6 to 12 month project, that you could see that as a challenge, and it's something that you can really learn from. Learning to deal with those more difficult personalities or complex projects is probably great experience and something you'll really be able to use in an interview down the line. I think if it's the partner that you're working for, or the culture, that's a totally different story, because the bigger picture. But I think a small an issue with a shorter project is less of an issue, really. I keep in touch with a lot of the people that I've placed in Microsoft partners, and I get so many different stories, and there's someone in particular that's for 3 years still on this project that's complex, and I think that they're torn between the enjoyment of the challenge of that project, but also a bit like, when's this going to stop now? It's been 3 years, and it requires long days sometimes and things like that. But also that challenge is there and quite enjoyable for them too. And equally, you get people that are on the bench, right? So, if you're kind of taken on and then you're benched for 6 months, your skills are drying up a little bit over that 6 months as well. So there's the opposite side of that challenging project and being stuck there. And I think most people that I know enjoy solving problems in this space. So a tricky project may be okay. There'll be
Yeah.
exceptions.
Yeah. So I also want to ask you, I mean, I don't think this is a hot take, but you mentioned in getting to know you, you advise against chasing deals and money and, promotions, and instead focusing on the relationships rather than the deals or the skills you're developing, as you just mentioned there. I
I
guess I
think
kind of want to ask you, go ahead, go, like, why do you feel that way as a
that
recruiter,
answer was
especially?
more around recruiters, I think, more around sort of me than the consultants that I work with. So yeah, that was more a kind of pop at the recruitment industry, really, because I think people can really sense it if there's a recruiter that's really trying to force them to accept a role, or even apply for a role that might not be quite right, might not be the right fit for the motivations that they've talked about, but it's going to get this recruiter a fee and therefore money. And I think that's where the stigma comes from around recruiters in general. So yeah, my answer to that question was more around, do a good job and you'll get paid for it, and it's much more enjoyable. So
Sure.
yeah, that was kind of what I was getting
How,
at.
if I flip this, like, how as a recruiter do you make sure that, you know, when you're meeting with businesses about a potential, I mean, what would you call it? An applicant, a candidate? Like, how do you make sure, hey, this person's the best long-term fit for you? Like, how do you portray that as a recruiter? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all relationships, isn't it, really? It's just learning, it's understanding your client, what's their culture like, and how flexible are they with their employees? What are the employees going to get out of working for that company, really? And what do they get out of it? The people that I might already know in that company and organisation, what are the challenges they're facing, and what are the benefits that they're getting from it? And, equally with the candidate then, what are their motivations? If I was interviewing you now, or we were having a first intro call, it would be all questions fired at you about, what do you want, what skills do you want to grow, what's your home life like, what's your motivation for moving, what can I do for you? And if I can match that up with a client that I know really well, then that's just quite an enjoyable experience all round, isn't it? So it's really just getting to know people, I think. Listening is probably the biggest skill set.
Sure. So, okay, maybe in case someone's listening and doesn't know who you are, and I guess let me just explain where my questions are coming from. So, Sarah, you are a recruiter in the Microsoft Dynamics and Power Platform space. Do you have like a 2-minute spiel of what all that means and what all that involves? Like, paint a little bit more of this picture of kind of what you do. Yeah.
Like my day-to-day work.
Sure. Either that or, why. Yeah, we'll start there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of split this world of mine between, bringing on new business, new clients, finding the best employers. I don't really want to work with anywhere that's got a bad culture, that I'm going to place someone who's going to end up unhappy or wanting to move. And then the other side is finding some really quite skilled candidates that are quite sought after in the market. And what I've found in the BizApp space is that traditional recruitment styles that maybe were used 5 years ago of just LinkedIn, headhunt, it's not enjoyable for me. I don't think it's enjoyable for candidates either. And I don't think clients like cold calling and being emailed to death. So what's a really nice bridge and a really nice hobby is the community stuff as well. So there are some really good recruiters out there in the community that I'm friends with, that are competitors of mine, and they're great, and we all kind of have the same outlook on how we do our jobs, and it starts with relationships, and it might not be that we're going out there to hire. I certainly don't go to user groups and conferences and start trying to talk to people about recruitment. That's not what I do when I'm there. But organically, then you'll get people coming to you and asking for advice. And my approach to it is more, let's just talk when you're starting to think about it. It doesn't have to be that you're ready now. Let's just start that journey, looking through your CV, talking about what you're doing now in your role, what do you need to do in the next 6 months to get to the next job that you want? Do you need some certificates? Do you need to maybe get more involved in forums, community, and kind of bulk up a little bit of that? Or is there like a skill set missing out of your stack that you could start learning on the job? It's amazing how many people's CVs don't say what they do. So, and that's a bit of the job that I really like, actually, is kind of getting on a call like this with somebody, talk about what they do, and then we pull the CV up and I'm like, where is it? It's not there. So we go through a bit of a process, and that builds trust and a good relationship as well, and usually an exclusive relationship as well, which is much more enjoyable for everybody. But yeah, kind of just going through a process, really, a bit of a journey together. And then it's like awesome at the end when someone gets a job that they really want and you've been a part of that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a super, warm feeling, right? Like being able to feel like you were a part of doing that for somebody. I wanted to ask you, how should a candidate how should candidates look for recruiters, and how, as a candidate, can I be sure that my recruiter has a genuine interest in my long-term success? Like, how do I know that their genuine interests are my best interest?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's hard to know if you've just been approached by someone, isn't it? If you've just kind of had an out of the blue message on LinkedIn or a phone call from someone's CRM saying, I've got this job and it looks great for you. And sometimes that will be the case, and you might get lucky. But I think most people have worked with a recruiter before, and if you've had a good experience, then great, you've got the trust there. If not, asking for referrals or recommendations from people in your industry. And then, like I say, there are other recruiters out there that put content out that you can kind of start to get to know. But I think the telltale sign of if you can trust somebody is the time they're willing to give you. The pace that they'll go out with you as well, is it set at your pace? Are you being made redundant? Do you need someone to go, right, urgent, let's go? Or do you need someone who's going to get to know you over a few months, get your CV sorted, figure out what your motivations are, figure out what your next 2 years needs to look like, and therefore what that company should look like that you're going to go to. So it's time, patience, listening again. It's just, does that recruiter know you? Do you need a company that's going to let you do the school run, or whatever it is that you need to do in that working day, or the flexibility you might need. That's a key factor for an awful lot of people now. So yeah, it's just that. Do you feel friendly with that person. And if they're rushing you or pressuring you, then they're probably the wrong person to be working with.
Am I allowed to ask, like, how long are your, I'll call them engagements? Like, how long do you typically say, if Itachi's listening, this isn't me, but say I was wanting to find a new job, like, how long would that process typically take working with a recruiter?
It's amazing how many people do a disclaimer when they ask me questions like,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess the reason I'm asking, right, is like, so I'm wondering, like, say I'm listening and I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm kind of approaching, for kind of the reasons you listed at the beginning, where it might be time for me to move on. Like, how long should I expect for that process going through a recruiter to take? I guess is kind of my question.
oh, it can really vary. Honestly, I've turned, if it was a contract role, it'd be a day or two. For a permanent role, it depends. Consultant answer, but it does really depend on what you need, and if the right role is there for you, if it's not, then we wouldn't rush through the process. So some interview processes will go 3 stages. So there's, one of the clients I work with here in the UK would be an initial Teams chat that might take a week to get a diary availability, then a tech task, which is quite a task. You might need a week or 2 weeks if you're doing a full-time job to just make the time to get that task done, submitted, and then follow that up with another interview. So that might take a month to get through that interview process if the right role is there for you. There are others that will move really quickly in a week. Maybe turn all of that around, not do the tech task or do less of a tech task. And it might be that, you come to me and say, I might be ready in about 6 months, and we go, okay, let's get to know each other, and that will take as long as it needs to take. And in the meantime, what sometimes happens is this awesome job's just come up, 2 months in, it's our 6 month journey, but then we go ahead and it happens quicker. So it does depend. It depends on the candidate's motivation and timeframes and the client's process. But anywhere from, realistically, probably 2 weeks to a month from sort of sending your CV off somewhere.
Hey, if you are finding this video impactful or insightful, be sure to like and subscribe. But more importantly, if you are wanting to learn more about the Microsoft Power Platform, then you are going to want to check out the completely free self-paced course that has all of the hand-picked content directly from me as the first link down in the description down below. This is going to teach you everything you need to know about the Power Platform to get started and pass your first few Microsoft certifications. I can honestly say that as a Power Platform consultant myself, that I love what I do, and I don't think many people in today's day and age can say that. If you are wanting to learn more, as I mentioned, be sure to check out the first link in the description down below to get in direct contact and connect with me. All right, let's get back to the conversation. I want to go back to something you had touched on before about it being like fulfilling, like having somebody find the right job and finding the right fit for somebody. I mean, you've also mentioned, you derive success from watching people succeed or from placing people in these jobs that they love. I mean, what parts of your job bring you the most joy and the most fulfillment, and why?
The whole process is enjoyable. The getting to know people is one of my favourite things. It's probably all I'm good at. I really enjoy that part of the process, and I've made some really good friends, especially in the Microsoft community, through just starting that process with people that have started talking to me about their career, and now, they're absolute best friends. So that's great. It's also great if you get someone to the point where they've got a job offer and they're over the moon, and it's the right role for them, and it's going to take the career in the right direction, and you kind of get all giddy together when when you're kind of going through that acceptance process. So I really get a kick out of that too. And then obviously the community stuff is so much fun, and again, a great way of making friends, but it's just good fun, isn't it? So it doesn't feel like work at all, although it kind of comes alongside it. That's great. That's great fun. It doesn't feel like work in the slightest. So all of those bits.
That's awesome. What I guess kind of another different question I have for you. What kind of trends do you see almost in like the future of I guess recruitment? But like you mentioned that things look very different now than they looked 5 years ago, or how you find candidates and find jobs. Like, how do you see the future of job recruitment in this space continuing to change and evolve?
Good question. I think the old school is gone. I think you have to kind of give something back now. So the kind of online forum stuff, providing information works really nicely. There's just sharing blogs, cheerleading people, all of these little bits that kind of lead to relationships, is totally different to how ever recruitment was. I would say maybe more than 5 years ago. You wouldn't approach things in that way. It was kind of just getting a job done. But I think now on the client side, on the candidate side of things, for me, you don't build relationships by just going out there and asking for something. You kind of try and give something back, and whatever that is within your skill set. So it might be doing a podcast, and and these things are great because people really learn from them. I watched your show, your individual session last week, and as a consultant in a totally different industry, but a consultant all the same, I was really taking lessons from that. And I think, you've done that for free, and that's great. No, but that's community, isn't it, right? So I think if we can build these communities in our own worlds and help people out, then that's what's going to work for all of us, really.
Yeah. Shameless plug. Go check out that video after you watch this one. But yeah, I agree. I think consulting in general, the video you're talking about, I had made a video called, 6,000 hours of consulting advice in 47 minutes, and kind of just was like a trend of different video topics and other YouTube sectors. But I was like, you know what, maybe I could try to take this topic and apply it to what I've kind of been learning through my career and through these conversations and different things. And I feel like what you're talking about of like giving something first is a concept that I've heard of, but not necessarily in relation to what we're talking about now, but more so in relation to like business and entrepreneurship. And where a lot of times entrepreneurs will say, like give something. I don't know if anybody out there listens to or watches Alex Harmozy. He's a phenomenal entrepreneur. I love watching and digesting his content. Super cool, funny guy. But he's like a serial entrepreneur. He like buys businesses and sells businesses and that's what he does. But he gives away so much value. Like there's no secret sauce. Like he literally tells you exactly how he does it in all of his videos. They're relatively longer form and like his principle is like if my free content is so good, then people will be like, if this is free stuff, I need to purchase his paid stuff. It must be that much better, And so I don't know, it's just kind of like that concept of like giving away something for free. And even in just this, right? Like giving away I'm by no means an expert. I proudly subscribe to the Young Professional Club. Pretty much everybody I work with is older than me or wiser than me or has more experience. But I like to think that, even though I might not know everything, that I might know a couple things, and just being willing to share them, And so that's been, I guess, impactful for me, and I enjoy that you brought that up, I guess.
There's a lot of it out there, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of YouTube and blogs and user groups out there, and forums, there's so much, and it can be hard to know what's best for you. But I think, people tend to find their favourites that they'll follow. But I find it great on the client side as well. I work with some end users that are maybe a little bit into a journey implementing Dynamics, and they're working with a partner that are charging them a lot of money, but then I've got a recording of a session that either I've hosted or I've seen with an industry expert, and I go, oh, hey, you're struggling with your governance, or you're struggling with something that I've just hosted a session on. There's the recording. Just take that if you want an introduction to any of the people in this circle. I can make that connection for you, and they're so grateful. And it's that's nice. That's a nice thing to do. But then they go, oh, Sarah really knows what she's talking about. So it kind of
Yeah.
covers up that I don't. But no, they're grateful for that, and then bringing sort of new people through as well, and encouraging that. The new people into sharing content too, and then it's just this nice little cycle, that keeps on giving.
Yeah. I also agree with that. Like, it's people who are listening to this, say they listen for 10 minutes or say they listen to the full 45 minutes, like they're effectively hanging out with us. Like, they are listening to us or watching us and are, like, in a weird way, are building relationships with us. And something about, even if, not a ton of people watch it or read your blog or whatever, there's still something about, like, this like authority almost, like your brand can take on just from producing even LinkedIn posts, like it just, there's something, like, about it that makes you feel like you know what you're talking about, or makes you feel like you're, a strong presence, I guess. I can't think of the word I guess I'm trying to use, but
Yeah,
you
I
would kind
think you're
of,
right. And I think you have to absorb some of this. So you are learning as you're interviewing different people. You're learning something every time. So you personally are getting something out of
yeah,
these awesome people that you've had on. You will definitely learn from them. Um, and I think that the people that are watching, whatever it is they're watching, whether it's this or anything else, there's someone out there that's really going to benefit from it. And I think that makes it worthwhile, doesn't it?
for sure. I always try to say, like, my wife had asked me when I first told her I wanted to start making these. She's like, "All right, well, what's your goal?" And I'm like, "Okay, is my goal to get 1 million subscribers? No, not, that's pretty unrealistic, or whatever. But, like, if my goal can just be developing deeper relationships with people in my network, like if these were just for me, you know what I mean? Like, if anything, I think this is episode 31 or so. If anything, I've had hour-long conversations with 31 different experts in this space. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, it's been beneficial for me, whether I share it or not. So I completely agree with what you have to say there. I would love to ask you, I guess, it kind of in the same vein as this, like, talking about building your network, building your brand, building your relationships. I mean, how do you go about building your professional network? And maybe a more targeted question is, like, what kind of strategies do you try to use in building your community within biz apps? I know you've mentioned different events or user groups, and I want to ask more questions about user groups, but, like, what are kind of your strategies to doing that?
I wouldn't say it was a strategy. This has all happened totally by accident. So
I guess
it's
that's a
great.
strategy in and of itself, but please continue. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I started running virtual events during lockdown. No one was hiring, so my clients didn't need me, my candidates didn't need me, I had no one to talk to. So I was listening to a webinar from a supplier of ours who mentioned roundtables, and I thought, oh, okay, I work with Blue Prism, which is an RPA vendor. And I knew they had a great customer engagement team, so I said to them, do you want to do something with me? So we set up an event and we invited local businesses around the northwest of the UK, northwest of England, to come and just listen to them talking about how you build a centre of excellence around RPA. And it was great because there was these people that have just gone to work from home for the first time, full time, lockdown. Often these guys were just rolling out projects on their own internally, so they had no real team with them. And we became like this little gang, and everyone took a turn in speaking then and talked about their own journey, and it grew and grew. And about 6 months in, someone turned up and started talking about Power Automate, and I was like, what's that? So then we kind of ended up going more into the Microsoft space, and then it was like, wow, there's this community that I didn't know anything about, and I'm kind of doing something that fits quite well with it, and yeah, it grew. We got some great speakers, we got some first time speakers in, and then people become cheerleaders. When you're cheerleading them, people will cheerlead you, and we're all just a big gang of friends now, and that's really what I've done. So I don't think that was strategic. It was sort of accident, but it really felt right, natural, and seems to have worked. But yeah, it certainly wasn't a deliberate attempt to
Yeah,
network.
strategic might be a that sounds too like I don't know what scientific, I guess.
I'd love to say I did it on purpose. Yeah, I definitely planned this.
Sure. But no, I think that's awesome. I wanted to kind of dive into these virtual events and user groups and like what kind of are these? What do these look like? Say I have no idea what you're talking about. Like what are these? Like what can I expect if I were to attend one of these?
So I do very little. I kind of gather the people, I suppose, is my job. But then we'll have a speaker, which could be an MVP, high profile speaker that's got something they want to share, and it could be a first time speaker. And I try and keep that balance right, because you know we need new people coming through, and it's a safe space for those new people to come through too. It's not a big scary event. It's online. It's with me, and I'll try and kind of be as supportive as possible. And it can be anything. I don't mind what goes out on that session. It's usually an hour. Sometimes it's a technical demonstration. So it might be a demo of something. It could be Power Automate. It could be, we had Agnes came on and did a real deep dive into Power Automate. They're the ones where my eyes cross over, because it's really technical. But we have lots of tech demos, some softer topics as well, which are really nice. But it's usually a presentation, someone doing a slideshow. But then sometimes it's just a really lovely roundtable discussion, and we'll just have a sort of few people just talking. We had a lovely girly one with Jean McFarlane talking about mentoring, and that was there was no structure to it. We just sat there and talked. So yeah, they vary, but yeah, it can be a deep dive into tech. Some of the most useful ones are the governance and administration, and it kind of just lays out. They're often really fun, like Angie always does some great graphics on hers as well, and they demystify things a lot. I think a lot of them are really good because the consultants that present often are client facing, so they kind of know how to talk to non-technical people. So yeah, they vary from deep dive in tech to that kind of, helping people to understand the basics of some things, and then others are a bit more softer, a bit more kind of consultant skills, maybe a bit more like the session that you gave last week.
Sure. So what are these this user group or virtual sessions you're referring to? Is this kind of like a recurring thing? Like if I wanted to attend what you're talking about, like where would I go? Or are they kind of like one off, hey, we're doing a user group on this topic, and hey, we're doing a user group on this topic? Or is it like, hey, user group, today we're talking about this. Hey, user group, today we're talking about this. Do you
Yeah,
know
no, it
my
would be
question?
advertised. Yeah, it'd be advertised with, and it's varying amounts of organisation that happen. So it might be, often someone will speak and then they'll say, right, can I book in my next session? And so we'll book something in for like 6 months' time. But because everything's changing so quickly, often that'll be posted maybe a month before the event. They tend to be weekly. And then they're posted on my LinkedIn page. I am launching with Keith Atherton in the new year a user group, online user group, and that format. I think we're going to go for like 2 speakers per session and maybe a monthly occurrence. We're yet to definitely map out exactly what it's going to look like, but there is going to be a new user group coming online. So I'm excited about that. Similar format.
Yeah.
So yeah, just come along, and then they're recorded too. So you can go back and watch the recording. You can share the recording with colleagues as well. There's one person I know. She's doing an apprenticeship at a bank over here, and she comes to every one, and then she goes and creates her own presentation with what she's learned, and then presents it to her team, which. And she's on Mark Smith's 90-day challenge at the minute, so she's so going to speak on a session as soon as she's ready. I'm getting her on, and so
Yeah.
yeah, that'll be really lovely.
That's so awesome to hear, and just everything that the impact that it's having and everything you're doing there. I wanted to transition the conversation one last time to kind of, I guess, wrap up what we're talking about here. Like, you had kind of mentioned that, you were in the recruiting space. Make sure I'm hearing you correctly. In the recruiting space, and then you discovered Microsoft Power Automate, and then the Power Platform kind of through that. I mean, what's kind of like your background, your experience, kind of your story, how you've gotten into this, and how, you feel like you've developed enough, Microsoft product or technological expertise, like, in order to be a great recruiter.
I always feel a little bit like people think I know more than I do.
Sure,
If
sure. You and me both. You and me both.
I take my own advice that I've just given to you, I must be learning things along the way, doing these events. So I've got to be absorbing something every time, and I think I do. Yeah, like I say, I was doing general tech anyway, and part of what I really enjoyed is the sort of strategy side of things. And in a previous life, I did industrial recruitment, which was warehouses and things like that. And that I like the strategy side of that too. So it's like, how are we going to piece all this together? What does the team look like? How do we build your team for you? And how do we go to market and make sure your brand looks good? And how am I presenting your brand from the client side of things? So that side of thing I've always loved. And then, yeah, kind of fallen into this Microsoft space. But all my friends, I literally said to someone today, how am I friends with so many clever people? They're insanely clever, the people that I'm in the company of, and you can't help but absorb some of the technology information. So I understand what goes together. I don't get hands-on with anything, I don't go building apps. I've got far too many friends that are better at that than me if I needed it.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's just experience. It's time and experience, and talking to people and going to sessions as well, just listening.
Yeah. That's fun. That's awesome. I love hearing that. I would love to, I don't know, wrap up our conversation, transition us to the after hours happy hour segment of the show, and just kind of hanging out, talking about stuff that we enjoy outside of work. I know, I feel like this is not in a bad way, but fairly common, where people mention that they love to cook. And I love asking them about what they love to cook, because I love to eat, right? Is what I always try to say. Me and my wife are absolute foodies. We love to go like somewhere new, no chains, local restaurants only. I live in North Dakota of all places, but we were in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago for a weekend, and we were just like walking on the street. I'm like, hey, what's a good brunch spot around here? And someone was like, oh, down the corner, go to this spot. And that's where we went, and it was phenomenal. We're foodies, so I would love to hear what you like, why you like to cook, what you like to cook. I mean, what's the Sarah Jones special? I mean, what are we talking here?
Oh, I love to eat too, which is why I love to cook. And my uncle said to me once that he said, you're a great cook because you cook with a desire to eat. And I think that's true. So it depends who I'm cooking for. I love making a roast dinner, just, nice big Sunday lunch for a big group, and I love having family over and spending time with people. But I equally I like chopping. I think it's a good switch off, a bit of therapy for me. So I get some good music on in the kitchen and just chop and make something taste nice. So if we have a family get together, the request is lasagna or lamb tagine. So that tends to be the go-to. And I get asked for recipes and I don't have a recipe, so I just chuck stuff in. But it comes out nice.
Yeah.
But I'm the
Yeah.
same as you. I love eating out as well in nice places, and chains don't do it for me either. I just came back from a few days in Valencia in Spain, just at seafood paella for about 5 days. Gorgeous.
Man. Yeah. I could only imagine. I could only imagine that. Yeah, I always say that's why I'm passionate about health and fitness, is so that I can continue to eat.
Don't
That's
you
that's
find
like one of
food is
my.
much more enjoyable as well? If I'm in I'm always doing something, but it's never really that consistent. But if I'm in a running phase, I enjoy my food so much more.
Yeah. Well, I am by no means skinny. Let's not say that. But I like to think I'm in pretty good shape. And so that is my motivator when I'm working out, is like, okay, I, like Thanksgiving, I'll be making sure I eat before, so I can eat an extra third plate for Thanksgiving here coming up as the time of recording this. So, um, no, it's all so awesome. What else? You also mentioned that you love to travel, and do all sorts of other things. Anything else, I guess, you'd like to share about who you are, Sarah?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I'm never at home, So I'm always doing something. But my daughter's 12. She started high school. She's in the second high school year now, and all she wants is money and lifts. She doesn't need entertaining by me anymore. She's got her own social life, and I thought kind of about maybe the start of this year. I thought I should probably get a proper hobby or something now. I've got more time on my hands. And I haven't had time just with my own kind of stuff. It was like I had a birthday and then I had a friend's birthday. My sister lives in Australia, so she visited this summer. Then she came over to Valencia for the wedding. So when my sister comes over, we tend to go on holiday because it's just quality time. We get the kids and the family and everything together. Um, and that, yeah, Scottish Summit was on, and then I had another trip. I haven't stopped, and then it's nearly Christmas. So I don't have any proper hobbies. Cooking, exercise. I'm a mum when she needs me to be, and I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't seem to have much more time.
Are you the type of person that enjoys the travel for work? I know some people have mixed feelings about that.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, it's great. Just again, it's that kind of social aspect I think of it, and meeting people and seeing new places. But yeah, I really enjoy the travelling side.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I work fully remote, fully from home, and I can definitely say that, like, especially as of recently, like the last 6 months, I've just been like, they I've been fortunate to go on site a couple of times, like to client projects, and go and meet the people in person that I'm working with. But it's by no means common, I guess, for me, or the project's experience, at least I've been on so far. And so I'm definitely feeling like I'm itching for a little bit of that. I'm not saying I want to travel, every week or every 2 weeks, but like couple, few times a year, maybe once or twice a quarter. Would love to, but just going and seeing people and meeting people. I as well subscribe to the extrovert social people club, and enjoy spending time and meeting new people and hearing their stories and connecting with them. So it's super cool to hear that you kind of relate to that as well. So
Yeah.
um,
How do you like caveat that then? If you're stuck in the house and you feel like you need to get out, where do you go?
yeah, a book? No, I'm just kidding. I recently, actually, I've been taking my laptop to like a coffee shop, or the nearest Starbucks. Something about it just feels like, I'm out of the house. I'm, outside of kind of the home office, I guess. Has been nice as well, but it has been like, I don't know, indifferent. Like, I think about, like, I'm jealous sometimes of people that have like really deep work friendships, because it is like, if I want to hang out with, like, there's no, hey, let's go grab lunch, or water cooler, getting coffee together or whatever. It's like, hey, let's hang out. I'm gonna book a Teams meeting on your calendar. Like,
Uh,
it's very different socially, and so I think at first I was like loving the flexibility of it, and I do. Like I'm not saying I want to give up working remotely, but I definitely am starting to feel like some of that would be cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I
Yeah.
do. There's a place in Chester. It's called Story House, and it's a charity, but it's got a cinema, theatre, bar, a library. It's all the local government that pays for it, and it's great. It's about 5 years old, so it's quite modern, and loads of people go and just work there. So you kind of make little friends as well. There's people that will come and share your table and have a little chat, and um, so that's quite nice. That's nice for the social side of things for me. But
Sure.
yeah, sort of hanging out on Teams isn't the same, is it? If I've been cooped
No.
up, I'll go to the local shop sometimes, and I'll just go and walk around and find something to buy just to get out the house.
Find something to buy. That's good. I feel like, yeah, that's me. That's me. Find something to buy. So, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I mean, connecting with people and getting to know them is my favorite part of doing this. If somebody was listening to this and was positively impacted by something you had to say or wanted to get in contact with you, what would be the best way to reach you and get in contact?
And probably LinkedIn, to be honest. I can send you the link for that. I have a X or Twitter account, but I forget that I've got it, so it's useless. So yeah, just LinkedIn.
Sure. I'll be sure to have a link to your LinkedIn down in the description down below for anyone to click on. Thank you to you for sticking to end the video. My name is Griffin Lickfelt, the host of the Citizen Developer channel, and I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.